To start out with, I just want to say that I'm looking forward to passage of this bill bipartisanly, and I believe that'll be overwhelming. But I'm also looking forward to completing the study that leads to the inclusion of the volunteer EMS workers as well. It's interesting. Today's debate began with acknowledgement of this entire subject originating with the atrocities that occurred on December 12th of December 14th of 2012 at the Sandy Hook Elementary School in my hometown of Newtown. I have a lot of friends who responded to that event. And a lot of friends who experienced something that to this day for them is still an unspeakable horror. Some of those folks were state police. Our local police were the first on the scene. EMS and fire followed closely behind. But when you think about it, it just completely takes out a whole community when something like this occurs, because we had teachers that saw that unspeakable horror that day. There were teachers that guided children out of the school through a labyrinth of horror. We had custodians in the school whose first thought might have been, how do I restore the building? Clergy, local politicians, national politicians. It's hard to describe. And much as conversation sometimes takes us off into different directions on political runs and issues where we piggyback on tragedy, the time it takes to heal a community is not measured in days or weeks or months or even years. So I really don't have a conclusion to that thought. So I'm just going to continue on and say that in 2013, in the midst of something that nobody had ever seen before, an evil that invaded an entire community and an entire state and in the entire world, I might add. A prior legislature in 2013, which was my freshman year here, stepped up with compassion. And our governor at the time, who most people don't remember as being a compassionate man, Daniel Malloy, stepped up with incredible humanity and compassion. And together we crafted the Sandy Hook Workers Assistance Fund, which was sort of a precursor to this, but a little bit broader because of that community need that I discussed with you a moment ago, Madam Speaker. That was done for obvious reasons, or at least in my mind. And I just want to take a second to remind all of my colleagues that SB 164 is a codified response to having to react in desperation to future unspeakable acts. To narrow it out and conclude, our police and our firemen, they're on the front lines and they're accustomed to seeing things and acting upon things on a daily basis which are life-defining. But there are events that require a little bit of consideration, compassion, and PTSD. And this is an incredibly important measure. The inclusion of our EMS workers in the next session is every bit as important. So, for those of you that are going to vote on this, because it's overwhelmingly going to pass, thank you. For those of you that are thinking, should I vote for this? I thank you in advance. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Representative.